I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Out of all the PC builds I've done over the last decade, the one I'm building today is hands down the most unique system I've ever put together. In a serendipitous twist of fate, I've partnered up with Jägermeister, as in the company that makes Jägermeister, to build an extremely cool Jaeger-themed custom loop PC. When they first reached out to me with the opportunity, I knew it was an offer I couldn't refuse. After all, this beloved drink and I go way back, and having a nice cold shot of it while I'm gaming always seems to hit the spot. If only it had RGB, it would make me a better gamer too. It has a complex blend of quality ingredients sourced from all around the world, including 56 different herbs and spices that, when combined in just the right way, creates a taste that's bold, memorable, and one of a kind. Just like today's build. To start proving my point, just look at the case we'll be using. The Spectre 3.0 from Singularity Computers, which out of the box is already a showstopper, especially with its built-in distro plate and the optional Elite kit, which puts another distro at the front or top of the case. That being said, this isn't just any Spectre 3, oh no. With the help of Singularity Computers and the team at Performance PCs, I'll be real. They treated the case with a custom powder-coated finish in the same iconic shade of green that's practically synonymous with the Jägermeister brand, and it looks phenomenal. The pixels on your screen are doing it dirty right now, but trust me when I say the color and finish of this paint job are absolutely stunning. On top of that, they also laser etched a shamelessly massive Jägermeister logo on the case's acrylic cable cover. The quality and precision here is nothing short of spectacular, and I'm running out of adjectives to describe just how enthralling this system is already chalking up to be. So again, huge shout out to Singularity Computers and Performance PCs for making this build truly special. Naturally, a case like this deserves to be filled with premium hardware. So going inside, we have an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X, an Asus ROG Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, 64 gigs of Corsair DDR4 memory, and an EVGA RTX 3080 for the Win 3 Ultra, to name a few. The cosmetic cherry on top? A beautiful set of custom sleeved cables by Ensource, who makes all my cables when the build costs more than my quarterly taxes. Now, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room right off the bat. With a build like this, why not use a faster GPU? The truth is that the parts for this project had to be sourced months ago, before the arrival of the RTX 3080 Ti, and when GPUs, especially the flagship RTX 3090 and 6900 XT, were nearly impossible to get a hold of. So the RTX 3080 simply made the most sense at the time. And to be fair, if you're gonna get an RTX 3080, EVGA's for the Win 3 Ultra is among one of the top variants of this still super powerful GPU. Honorable mentions for our custom water cooling hardware include the Corsair XC7 CPU block, EK's Quantum Vector GPU block, and radiators and fittings from Primo Chill and Bits Power. Corsair, Primo Chill, and Performance PCs provided the majority of what you see here, so a huge thanks to them for their contributions. I'll put their links in the video description so you can check them out and check out all their hardware if you're ready to start planning your next custom loop. Now, here's where I address elephant number 2. With a Jaeger-themed custom loop PC, certainly, Kyle, you must be using Jägermeister as coolant, right? You bet your ass I am. But only temporarily for the purpose of this video. Countless demonstrations and reports across the web have shown that alcoholic beverages, whether it be Jägermeister or beer, are prone to rotting if left in a water cooling loop for too long. And while alcohol alone won't attack metals in the loop, the other ingredients in the stiff drink can, resulting in an explosion of corrosion. To add insult to injury, alcohol does have a nasty tendency to crack acrylic with long-term exposure. But since I'm way too curious to see how a PC responds to ice-cold Jägermeister, I'll be putting it in the loop for some quick testing before replacing it with a custom-dyed fluid from Performance PCs that looks dangerously close to the frosty beverage. In fact, I've already accepted that I'll probably take a shot of it by mistake by the time this build is over. With all that said, it's finally time to build this glorious PC. The build is complete, and it looks legitimately insane. And yes, that's actual Jägermeister in the loop, but more on that in a sec. You may have noticed some things have changed since the start of the build, including the fittings and tubing. The original hardline fittings had an orange color similar to the one on the Jägermeister bottle, so I thought they would be a perfect fit at first, but once I started putting things together, the build started to look more orange than green, and I just wasn't feeling it, so I decided to spray paint them black. No big deal. Once I had bent all my tubes and was ready to install them, however, I realized that my 1/2-inch fittings and 13mm tubes were not compatible with each other, due to being off by a fraction of a millimeter. For some reason, I've always thought these two measurements were interchangeable, but they are not. So, with no time to ship a new set of fittings or tubes, I grabbed some 16mm EK fittings and 16mm tubing I had on hand and decided to use those instead. I'm still a little sad to lose the frosty effect that the original satin tubes had, but I welcome the superior girth of the new rods and think they look more impressive despite their tighter fit. Made of PET plastic, the thicker tubes were also much easier to cut than the PMMA satin tubes, which I initially forgot cannot be trimmed with a standard tube cutter. Another surprise came early on in the build, during the test boot. A black screen led me down the usual troubleshooting path until I discovered the PCIe riser cable to be the issue. Being a Gen 3 cable, my first move was to plug a GPU directly into the motherboard to gain access to the BIOS and force the slot to run at Gen 3, but that had no effect. The only other riser cable I had at the time just so happened to be a Gen 4 cable, which booted up instantly with our RTX 3080, but there was still another problem. The mountable PCB of the cable was slightly wider than the one on the original, preventing it from fitting on the case's riser cable standoff, so I had to cut it to size. By the way, if you ever have to cut a PCB, don't use wire cutters. The PCB will win. You'll have much better luck with a fine-tooth hacksaw. Afterwards, the riser cable fit on the standoff perfectly, albeit with misaligned mounting holes that barely gave me enough PCB to screw down. Nearly having several successive panic attacks, I'll admit, I had a few sips of Jägermeister after that. Speaking of which, just how well, or unwell, did the system perform while sipping on 1.5 liters of chilled Jägermeister? After a 5-minute run in Cinebench R23, the 5950X saw a max temp of 57 degrees Celsius. While not an exact apples-to-apples comparison, this was about 10 degrees cooler than the 5950X in my wall-mounted PC during the same test, which isn't bad, but not jaw-droppingly good either. Bear in mind that filling a loop this size takes a while, and requires a lot of power cycling that heats up the fluid pretty quickly. So by the time the Cinebench run started, the Jägermeister was still below ambient, but far from the ice-cold state it was in moments before. So it's really no surprise these results don't blow us away. After a 15-minute session in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the CPU peaked at 56 degrees Celsius, with the RTX 3080 hitting a max temp just shy of 50°C. That's surprisingly cool, considering this was after our Cinebench run. However, despite the short-term thermal benefits and sheer amusement, I have to reiterate that this is not a sustainable, safe, or sane way to cool your PC under any circumstances. Of all the valuable lessons this build has taught me, the most obvious one is that the best use of Jägermeister is to drink it. Now, before you ask if I'm giving away this build, no. It'll actually be going to Jägermeister's headquarters office in New York City, where it will be on display for people to gaze upon and foolishly think to themselves, whoever built this really knows what he's doing. But you're in luck, because Jägermeister is giving away a big prize package including a pair of Jägermeister shot glasses, their bottle glorifier, a $100 gift card, and a $4,500 ABS pre-built featuring an AMD Ryzen 9 5900X and an RTX 3090. Yes, the GPU in the giveaway PC is faster than the one in the Jäger build. Nothing makes sense anymore. Follow the link in the description though for more info, and best of luck to all who enter. That's all for now, guys. Toss a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. After all, I'm sure this isn't the last ridiculous PC you'll want to see me build. Till next time, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.